Okay, thanks for coming out to the financial workshop. Today we have Takila Hall from CFNC, and she will be presenting what they have to offer on their website. As I said earlier, be sure to go to that website and really check out their resources. It's a phenomenal tool. Takila?
I'm so glad to be with you guys today. We have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So if it's okay, I'd like for you to just jot down your questions for me, and we'll do a formal Q&A at the very end. And I know it's a lunchtime hour, so if you have to go and you think of other questions after today, feel free to give it to Ms. Gazmarian. She will funnel them to me, and we'll make sure all your questions are answered. And if you have a personal or private question that you don't want to ask in front of the group, I certainly understand. And I will be seeing a little bit after the program, and I'll address private questions. Now, I gave you a handout called Going to College Without Going Broke, and that'll be a lot of my speaking points today. So I tried to make it easy so that you don't have to write or type until your hands fall off. And just before I start, I'm going to talk about another program, just depending on the amount of people who might have students that are interested. To have anyone who has a student who's interested in allied health, nursing, or education. So if so, just raise your hand, and I'm going to have Ms. Gazmarian pass out this handout, and we'll talk about that towards the end. I am your regional representative for College Foundation in North Carolina. And I'm so pleased to come here. Every time I come here, it's great. I'm always welcome. And I'll come as many times as my schedule allows, and you invite me. And it's on tape, so. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about cost of attendance a little bit today, financial aid basics. We'll talk about the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. Now, of course, we won't be doing the FAFSA form until after January 1 of the senior year. There are a few changes. I'll highlight some things that we know as of today. There may be some other things that come down the pipeline, but whatever I know as of today, we'll go ahead and share that information. We'll talk about other programs that are out there, and also CFNC resources. Anytime that I do a seminar, I always ask parents, and I don't want you to raise your hand, but I just want you to kind of think about, how much is it going to cost your student to attend a college or university of their choice? So just in your mind, I want you to get a figure, okay? So I'm not going to ask you what that number is, but I want you to start thinking about how much will it cost your student to attend a college or university of their choice. Because if we don't know how much it costs, we really don't know how much money we're going to need. So if you don't have that number in your head today, I want you to find out, what is that number that we need to be aware of? So when we talk about college costs, or we talk about college cost of attendance, we're looking at fees that are direct costs, and we're looking at some that are indirect costs. So direct costs are things that you're going to get a bill for. Okay, your indirect costs are things that you're not really receiving a bill for them, but they still impact the college experience. So some things that we're talking about are like tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, maybe other equipment. Personal or miscellaneous expenditures, so your students will still need toiletries. They're going to want to eat out. You're not going to eat in the cafeteria every day, so they're going to pizza money, Taco Bell money, Subway money, or whatever. Haircuts, brows waxed, whatever. They're still going to have that money for that. And then, of course, you see this wonderful young man. He's sitting there, and I really recommend your students sit there and wait for their clothes. And they're learning to do their laundry. So that's another bill. They're actually doing laundry. You won't be doing the laundry for them anymore. So anyway, those types of things. If your students plan to take a vehicle to campus, you want to find out, first of all, can they, depending on the institution, can they take a car as an incoming freshman? And if so, you want to find out how much will it cost you to allow them to have a parking sticker. And I tell students, when they get that parking decal or that parking sticker, they're not guaranteed what? Parking space. Okay? They're guaranteed not to be towed if they have a parking sticker and they're parked the way they should be. So, so those are just some things. If you or your student, or you and your students take advantage of loans, there may be loan fees that you might be responsible for. So those are a few things. Now, this is kind of where your handout picks up. So when we're talking about financial aid, this is Financial Aid 101. I call it the basics. I don't expect for you to be an expert in one afternoon. but I hope that you're taking away some things that will be helpful and beneficial to you as you go through this next experience. So we're talking about gift aid. Gift aid, that's free money. That's money that you guys want. That doesn't have to be repaid. So when I talk about gift aid, you mostly hear about it as scholarships or grants. You know, there is a difference. They both mean free. But when we talk about grants, that's money that your student will receive based upon financial consideration. So they are really looking at your income to find out if you qualify. And then scholarships, they can be based upon many different criteria. So it could be your students' academics, you know, so hopefully they're able to get something that way. It could be if they have athletic ability. Maybe your student knows what they want to study, what career path they're going to be going on. It could be that your student has some kind of music talent. I mean, there's scholarships based upon lots of different things. Sometimes the less money you have, the more money you can get. There are awards based upon maybe the financial institution your student is affiliated with. Like you guys are here in Greensboro. Let's see, if you're a student, not you, but if your student is a member of Summit Credit Union, there are special scholarships that your student can be considered for or apply for. And there may be other institutions that you guys are affiliated with, and you might want to find out. If you're a part of a trade association, a professional organization, if your students are part of a club or organization, there may be awards out there based upon your faith. There are awards that are out there, the type of institution that your student will attend, the actual institution that they are going to be attending. So not just the type of school, but the actual school, whatever school that might be. They'll have their own institutional awards, and we can keep going. Parents and employers offer things. If your student works, their employer may offer things. There's just not one website that has every single scholarship out there. Wish I could tell you, but it wouldn't be as fun if you went to one website and all the information was there, right? It's like a scavenger hunt. But I will guarantee you will get out what you put in. If your student puts very little in, you're not going to see that many results. And it's not something that we do one time and look for all these scholarships one time for all 2 years or all 4 years your students enrolled. It is something that we're going to do continuously as we find out that we have unmet need. So I want you guys to go ahead and have your students to research. If your student's a senior, they may have started at the beginning of the year. They can still continue to look. If your student's younger than senior year, we're in research mode. So not too much changes from one year to the next. Maybe the amount of the award, maybe the deadline, but the criteria is pretty consistent. Every once in a while they may tweak it or whatever. So if your student's not a senior and you're trying to figure out how to pay for college, my advice to you is to go ahead and start researching. Find out what scholarships are looking for. Some scholarships want to see your student volunteering. They want to see that your student is maybe in a leadership role. So as underclassmen parents, you have a lot more time, you know, because as a senior parent, your students meet the criteria or they don't. There's not really time to prepare to meet criteria. So if your student's younger, you know, than, you know, the upper school level, then certainly you have a lot of time to do a lot more research. Now, as you're applying for scholarships, make sure you're meeting and exceeding deadlines. It's very important. Some awards are given on a first-come, first-served basis. So what tends to happen is if your student doesn't get their paperwork in pretty quickly or early on, then they may be eligible for an award, but they're not funded. So they could have received it, but the money ran out. So you want to know if the award is renewable or not. You don't want to count on dollars, you know, and you might not be able to get them again. So is it renewable? If it's renewable, then what does your student have to do to get it again? Do they have to complete a renewal form? Do they have to do community service? Do they have to maintain a certain GPA? You know, each committee can decide what those rules are. Some are lenient if your student doesn't meet the criteria, and they may, you know, put your student maybe on probation and allow them to regain that award again. Some of them will say, I'm very sorry, you didn't meet the criteria, and they may not. So that's at the discretion of that scholarship group or committee. So we want to make sure we know those rules very, very soon up front. So as we talk about scholarships, just never stop looking. There are awards once your student's already in college, not just, you know, as they're preparing to enter into college, but when they're there, you know, once they're in their major, the department that they're part of may offer awards or tell your student about awards that they can apply for. Now, if you don't get all the scholarships or grants that you're looking for that first year, you know, it's not the end of the road. There are some other things that you can do. We call it self-help aid. So that would be money that your students are earning through work. You hear it referred to as work-study programs, where they cannot work more than 15 to 20 hours a week. A lot of times they're working on campus or in a community service setting. Now, if your student cannot get the work-study program, then they can still go to career services, and maybe they can get a job, on campus that way. And of course, then there are loans. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about loans. I want you to be aware of them. I want you to know how they work. But I want you to look for the free money first. And then let this be the last thing that we consider. So there are loans that your student can take out for their own education. They're Perkins loans, they're Stafford loans, where you don't co-sign with them. It's probably the first time your student has ever had anything in their own name. So if you see on your award letter from financial aid, and it says that your student is eligible for a Perkins loan or a Stafford loan, then you want to talk to your students and say, this is your responsibility. So nobody's going to call mom and dad and say, hey, it's time to make payments on this loan. They're going to be contacting your student regarding repayment of that debt. Then there are loans that you as parents can take out for a dependent student. So in a few slides we'll talk about what it means if your student's dependent or what it means if your student's independent. Most of you will have a dependent student. But there is a PLUS loan, parent loan for undergraduate student. That's a loan that you can take out for your student to help pay for educational expenses. Now, the Perkins and Stafford loans, they're not based upon creditworthiness. But the PLUS loan, that's your loan, it is based upon creditworthiness. So there are credit checks that are done for you. For the Perkins loans, usually the interest rate is roughly about 5%. For Stafford loans, whether they're need-based or non-need-based, they're a fixed rate of 3.86 right now. And I believe the PLUS loan is going to be a fixed rate of 6.41 right now. So it's at your advantage to find out where your student can qualify for in their name first. You have 10 years to repay, no prepayment penalties. So I will tell you there are grace periods before you have to begin repayment of loans. So your students need to be very careful about dropping classes, because they usually have to be enrolled at least half-time. Half-time for many institutions is going to be at least 6 credit hours. So we don't want them to go into repayment prematurely. Now, of course, I want you to know that the family is primarily responsible for college costs to the extent of your ability to pay. Now, as we talk about financial aid, as I mentioned before, it's not something that we're going to look at one time for all 2 years, all 4 years your students enroll. This is something that's going to be an annual process. The very first thing we talked about was cost of attendance. So I want you guys to find out what that is, get that number in your mind. When you complete the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, you're going to get your EFC, your expanded family contribution. So once you have your cost of attendance, and we know what your EFC, or your expanded family contribution is, and we subtract those numbers, you'll find out if there's any kind of need eligibility that you have at any school. So this is something that you can use anytime, any year. Now, the cost of attendance may change from institution to institution. Your EFC will be the same no matter whether your student is looking at UNCG. It doesn't matter if they're looking at GTCC. They can be looking at Wake Forest. It doesn't matter. The EFC is always the same. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. Sometimes parents I get a little nervous when we talk about the FAFSA form. I will tell you that it's really not a bad form. The Department of Ed has done a really good job with streamlining it, making it more user-friendly. As you do it electronically, there are going to be helpful tips or hints that will tell you this is what information we're looking for here, or if you're uncertain about something. There's also a toll-free number that you can call. If you're working on the form at home, it's just 1-800-4FED-AID. So again, 1-800-4FED-AID. And if you're sitting at home, you're working on the document, you can get assistance. So it's not something you have to do all in one day. Take your time. Make sure you're looking at it carefully. You're looking at things for accuracy to make sure that you're not making careless mistakes. But this document, if your student is a senior, you're not going to be able to start working on it until after January 1. So January 1 is the very first day that it's available. Okay, so we're doing a 2014-15 application. So basically, you're going to be using 2013 data. So you're going to be using your 2013 W-2s, your 2013 tax form that you completed. And the whole reason for completing the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is if your student wants to be considered for federal state grants, federal loans, federal work study. Some schools also use the FAFSA form to determine eligibility for their institutional aid. So you always want to make sure you have it on file. Sometimes families will say, well, Takila, I'm not sure that I'm going to qualify for aid. Well, you can't even get a loan if you feel like you need that in the future without doing it. So we don't ever know what our financial situation is going to be from one day to the next, or one week to the next, or month to the next. So it's always good to have it on file, and so that the financial aid office will have that in case your situation changes. So the official website for FAFSA is FAFSA.gov. So FAFSA.gov. There are a lot of websites that sound like that one. Usually every year when I'm out, I'll have people that will say, well, I just put in FAFSA in Google and I went to the first website that was up there. Okay? And some websites will charge you money, which is a free application. You should not be paying anyone to help you to complete the form. Now, although we can't begin working on the FAFSA form today, remember we can't do it until after January 1 of the senior year, what we can do is get a signature pin. PIN is our personal identification number. So at least one parent needs a PIN and your student needs a PIN. Now, I'm just going to take a moment to talk about PIN. If you're a parent and you have a PIN because you were the student, or you have other children that have gone off to college and you received a PIN, you don't need a new PIN. Okay? If you can't remember your PIN and you need to request a duplicate PIN, you can go to the pin.ed.gov website and you can obtain that, or get a duplicate. If you're a parent and you have never had a PIN, then get one. And your student will have never requested one, so they will need to get a PIN. That will allow you to be able to sign your FAFSA form electronically. So pin.ed.gov. Now, if you forget and you're already on the FAFSA website, it will allow you to still get a PIN. You'll see some that will say PIN site. You can click there, and you can also get to the PIN website that way. Now let's talk about what it means for your students to be dependent versus independent. A lot of times students will think, I'm 18, I have a job, I have a car, I'm independent. No, it's not quite that simple. On the FAFSA form, there's a whole section that talks about dependency status. If your student cannot answer yes to at least one of the questions here, for financial aid purposes, they're dependent. So if your student is dependent, that means your student will provide all their information, and you guys will also need to do it too as parents. So your students will have their information, and then parents will also need to provide their information. So it wants to know, was your student born before January 1, 1990? Are they married? Do they have dependents of their own who they provide more than half the support for? Are they in graduate professional school? Are they in the military? Are they a veteran? Also wants to know, anytime since age 13, both parents were deceased or the students a dependent award of the court. They're considered to be an emancipated minor or a legal guardianship. Anytime, in foster care, anytime age 13 or older. Or they're considered to be an unaccompanied youth who is homeless or who is at risk of homelessness. Now, if your student cannot answer yes to anything that I mentioned, then they're what? They're going to be dependent. Now, I want to talk about parents. The first question is the most popular question that I get. This part here is the second most popular question I get, because sometimes we're trying to figure out who the parent is. So I'm going to tell you. There are a couple scenarios, and then there's a new scenario that I'm going to talk about, and I'll say that for last because it may not be one you've heard of yet. So you're considered to be a parent if you're a biological or adopted parent who the student lives with and you're married to each other. Okay, so biological or adopted parents married to each other, and that's who the student lives with. It could be a single parent that was never married or who was widowed, and that parent is a custodial parent. It could be a divorce or separated situation, and then we just want to know who the custodial parent is. So if the custodial parent is mom, then we just need mom's information. We do not need that information on this form for the non-custodial parent. Now, if mom has remarried and there's now a step-parent, step-parents must include their information on the form as well. Okay? Now, the new part is going to be the second bullet. This is new. Okay? So what's new on the FAFSA form is biological or adopted parents who are not married and who the student lives with. Okay? So biological or adopted parents who are not married to each other and are living together, and that's who the student is living with. That's new on the FAFSA form. So, so I don't want to confuse you. So remember, the first one was married to each other, and the second one is not married to each other. Also, they're going to change the language, is my understanding of the FAFSA form. Historically, they have always said mother, father, step-parent, where they would say stepmother, stepfather. I think the new language is going to be parent 1, parent 2. So there are going to be some changes on the FAFSA form for the upcoming year. So just be looking out for that. And then, we'll kind of see. So we're just waiting. So we haven't seen the final draft yet. But as soon as that's available, we'll know a little bit more about what's going to be up there. But we already know that's going to be a change that you'll see. Special circumstances. Sometimes students are unable to provide parental information. Does not keep them from doing the FAFSA. They can still do the FAFSA form. But if parent information is not up there, then the student may have to work with the financial aid office to see if there are other steps that they need to take. But some situations would be the student does not know where the parent is. It could be that the parent's incarcerated. It could be this abusive situation. So those are some scenarios where parental information may not be able to be obtained. Now, when we do the FAFSA form, I will tell you probably about 90 to 95% of the information up there, you already know the information. You already know it. Now, the only part that you may have to kind of look at some of your documents or find the information is when we get down to the financial part. So basically the information for the student and the parent, they are pretty much the same, just one piece of information is in the parent section that talks about financials, and then there's another section for students where it's talking about the financial information. So it's going to ask about the adjusted gross income. It'll talk about earnings from work, tax liability, untaxed income, other financial information. It will ask what's in the checking account, savings account, money market accounts, just to give you some examples. On the FAFSA form, it will be very detailed. It's going to tell you we want to know this, 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 and this. Okay? And it'll say we don't need that. Okay? But we'll also ask you about real estate, other investments that you may have. If you have a small family business that's not reported, if it's a family farm, that's not reported on the FAFSA. So again, same information that's asked of the student will also be asked of the parent. Now, I'm going to give you one big tip. Know what section you're in, okay? Because more than likely, it's the parent who's doing the form, although the form is written as if the student is doing it. Are y'all with me? Okay. So what happens is sometimes it'll say, what is your name? I'm thinking, well, my name is Takila Hall, but my child's name is Christian Hall. So I'm doing it for my child. Or if you get your student's name right, it'll say, what is your social? Okay? I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking my social is whatever. And sometimes parents will put their social versus their student's social. And that's one of the most common errors that we do see. So make sure am I in the student section or am I in the parent section? Also, when you're putting your student's name down, make sure you're putting their name as it appears on their Social Security card, on their birth certificate, or whatever, because there is a Social Security Administration data match, and if it doesn't match up, there's going to be a problem. So, no nicknames. Now, once you complete the FAFSA form, we're going to get a student aid report or SAR report. It's the results of everything you answered on the FAFSA form. You will also find out your EFC, your expected family contribution. So it'll tell you if you're eligible for Pell Grants, if your student might be eligible for loans. There's some really good navigation links that will talk to you about institution type. It'll tell you about the cost of attendance, graduation, retention, transfer out rates. That information will be listed. And your student can list up to 10 colleges that they want to receive the information from the FAFSA. Now, when your institution is notified that your student has been admitted, so they're actually been accepted into the institution, then the financial aid office will receive that information. They're going to put together an award package for the student. Okay? And your award package is not like it used to be when I was a young woman. I'm not young anymore. But when I was a young woman, we used to receive a paper award notification or award letter. Nowadays, students are receiving notifications electronically, so they may have to log into whatever that particular institution calls their system, or they may receive an email. So you really want to find out from the financial aid office, how should we expect to get our award notification? Okay, so a lot of offices, I think, are trying to save some trees, and so we're sending things electronically. Now, again, we're not doing the FAFSA form until after January 1 of the senior year. If your student's younger than senior year, you have some time, okay, before we'll need to do it. On the FAFSA website, there are some forecasters that you might want to look at early on. Now, we don't have a North Carolina State deadline to complete the FAFSA form. However, one of the things that you want to have as a takeaway is you want to find out, does the college or the campus that your student plans to attend, do they have a priority filing date for FAFSA? So some schools may be March 1, others may have a different deadline, but you want to make sure you know. That kind of gives you like a timeline when you need to be getting your forms completed, when you need to get your taxes prepared, and things of that nature. You don't have to wait till you've been accepted at a college or university before you start applying for financial aid. Applying to college and applying for financial aid really go hand in hand. I also want to encourage you to develop some type of filing system for all your awards letters, any scholarship notifications that you're getting, because sometimes as we're completing forms, they may not always make it to their destination. Sometimes, you know, something gets lost along the way. Maybe it made it there, but it got lost under some papers or whatever, and you might be asked to reproduce that document. So always make sure you have a copy of your confirmation pages, anything that you're submitting to the financial aid office or any scholarship group. Now, yes?
Can you tell me again, so our tax information for this year won't come until the end of January?
Right.
Is that the one they want?
They want 2013. So we're the question is, you know, what information will we need as far as our taxes? So if you're doing the 2014 FAFSA, you're looking for 2013 tax returns.
So we can't really do it until the end of January when we get those, right?
Well, you can begin working on the portions of the FAFSA form that may not be asking for your financial part as it relates to your taxes. You can begin working on that. But you're right, most companies don't get your W-2s out until the end of the year. So what I'm recommending that you do, and I'm going to actually say two things. What I'm recommending that you do is you go ahead and work on as much as you can. You can save it, and then once you get your taxes, you know, prepared, then one of the things you can do is you can use the IRS data retrieval. So it will actually link your information from the IRS directly to your FAFSA form. So you can do that. It's not required, but you know, this keeps you from making a lot of errors. Sometimes parents want to manually type in information. So when we do that, sometimes there might be an extra zero or, you know, that we add in. But this is a guarantee that your information is as the IRS received it. If it's someone who owns their own business and it's going to be a long time before you can get your taxes prepared, then the department does allow you to guesstimate or estimate your figures. But if you guesstimate or estimate your figures because you can't get your taxes prepared in a timely manner, then what you need to do is once you get your taxes prepared, you need to go back into the FAFSA form and update your records. So, you know, real numbers are preferred. That's what I'm hearing from most of my campuses. So if you can get your taxes prepared in a timely manner and also meet that deadline for the campus, that's what they really want you to do. But if you have an extenuating circumstance or unusual circumstance and you cannot get it done, then guesstimate or estimate, that allows you to meet their deadline, then go back in and make your revisions. Does that help?
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you the data retrieval is usually available in February. Last year, it was early February. This year, I haven't heard the exact date, but I understand it may be a little bit later. It's not that you go and get your taxes prepared with, you know, Jackson Hewitt or H&R Block, and then you go home and the very same day you upload it. It's not quite that quick. The earlier that you get your taxes prepared and you try to do this, it's usually quicker because I guess everybody's not doing it. And then the later you wait, you know, it tends to increase the time. So usually data retrieval, and I don't know for this year because we're waiting to find out, usually a week, maybe maybe a little over a week. If you actually prepare your taxes and you send them in snail mail, it's several weeks before you're able to use this. So, but it is great. There are some scenarios where you may not be able to use the data retrieval. So if you file an amended tax return, if you file married filing separately, then you're not able to use it. So there's going to be some situations that you want to make sure that you read to see if you're able to do the data retrieval. So they'll actually give you that information. But it is the fastest way and the easiest way to link up your tax data. Now, also what I want to let you know is that sometimes when you manually type in your information for your taxes, a financial aid office could ask you to supply them with a tax transcript. So that could happen. So don't be freaked out by that. Now, FAFSA Day. FAFSA Day is an opportunity for you to get help completing your FAFSA. Not a presentation like we're having now, but we have FAFSA Day in all 100 counties, and it's going to be Saturday, February 22nd, from 9 until noon. Will you be there for, 3 hours? I hope not. If you have all your documents in good working order, you have them put together, you can expect to be there maybe 30 to 45 minutes. We're not keeping you there all day, so we're going to tell you you need to know your student's social. So if you don't know your student's social, and I don't know my kid's social, I'm just going to tell you, not by heart. Like I said before, I was born at a different time, and my social starts off totally different. And so if you don't know your student's social, another tip, don't guess at it, okay? Please bring that Social Security card or something that has the number on it written down, okay? Because it does cause problems if it doesn't match up, okay? So it'll ask your student's driver's license number. I'm sure you guys probably don't know that by heart, so make sure if they have a driver's license that you know that. Again, you bring your W-2s, your tax forms, that information, you'll need that. So we ask that you register, if you can, ahead of time so that we know how many financial aid experts to have at a particular location. And so if you don't want to register online, you can call our toll-free number and you can come. So usually there's several institutions in Guilford County that will be available for FAFSA Day. We also have some state employee credit unions that will be participating. So at the end of my talk, I'll make sure that I'll tell you all the different locations. Some of the state employee credit unions may say for their members only. Some of them will assist everybody. The colleges and universities for the area, they will help anybody. So your student doesn't have to be going to whatever the school is. They can actually attend, FAFSA Day and not be planning to come there. So it is you, your student, paperwork, and you're at a computer. We will not keep things in for you. But if you need help, raise your hand. If you've already begun your FAFSA and you have questions, you just want to stop by and say, hey, can you just look at this and see if I did it right? That's fine too. But we're there to help. Now, the largest sources of financial aid will come from the federal and state governments. Under that will be institutional awards. Now, I don't want you to raise your hand, but this is just another question. How many of you have been on the financial aid office's website for the school you're considering, or the schools? If you haven't, you want to go there. They're going to have a lot of valuable information about how to be considered for institutional aid. And then many of the campuses will have outside scholarships that can be used at their institution, or if your student decides not to go there, they can be used anywhere if your student receives the award. So they have some valuable information. Now, scholarships and grants from other organizations, that's what I was telling you earlier in my talk, some ways that you can get money, some places that you can check out. Of course, your school counselor would be a great resource for you. It's okay to go on the internet and look at scholarship websites. Just make sure they're not charging you money. Okay? The national scholarships that are out there, you can get them. It's a little bit more competitive because you're not just competing with people in Guilford County. You're competing with people in other counties and maybe even other states, not just North Carolina. So, but you can get them. There are some legitimate ones out there that you can possibly receive. Now, federal loans, I do want to just say a little bit about federal loans. When we talk about federal loans that you or your student may be receiving, you have to repay them no matter whether your student finishes their education or not, whether they're satisfied with their education or not, whether they ever work in that field or not. It doesn't matter, they have to be repaid. So that's something you definitely want to talk to your students about. Now, another takeaway for you is to find out if the school that your student is considering offers a payment plan. Now, not everyone chooses to get loans, not everybody wants to get a loan, and I just want you to know what all your options are. So college installment payment plans or tuition payment plans allow you to pay out of current income, but not all at one time. So you may receive that tuition bill and you may say, well, I can't pay that all at one time, but if they break it up into 3 or 4 payments, maybe I can handle that, or it might be a little bit more doable. So you can certainly do that. They usually use a third-party servicer, and that servicer is just funneling the payments from you to the school. And usually there's an enrollment fee that you may have to pay. So just check it out and see if they offer it. You may need it, you may not need it. Sometimes they make it available to everybody at the institution. Sometimes they may say, well, this is available for this population or that population. So just know the rules in case you want to take advantage of it. Private loans, I don't talk a whole lot about private loans because they're allowing you and your students to borrow above and beyond what you're eligible for in federal dollars. So I always tell families to think about your students' educational goals. What are they trying to do? Are they just going to do undergraduate studies? Will your student need to go to graduate school? So we want to be smart with how we use our dollars because we don't want to get bogged down a whole lot of loan indebtedness. Undergrad, knowing that grad school is going to be on the horizon. So we just need to kind of think about the big picture. And then the interest rate is usually higher than we will see if we're looking at federal loans. So just borrow responsibly. Don't borrow any more than you absolutely have to. Now another thing I want to say is about loans. When we're talking about federal loans, don't assume that every school participates in the federal loan program. Some schools do and some schools don't. If it's a 4-year public or private school, you can pretty much assume that they're going to participate. But when we're talking about our 2-year institutions, our community colleges or technical schools, they may not. Okay? There are a lot of community colleges that have gotten out of the loan business. So you may want to check. Again, go to the school's website, or if you're going to an open house event, or as you're going through orientation, make sure, if you're thinking that you might need to have a loan, that you know if they're participating or not. And again, just remember, don't get hooked. Avoid misleading financial offers. So sometimes you'll get something in the mail to say, join us at the Ramada Inn, bring your checkbook, bring your check routing number, and we're going to guarantee you scholarships. Just be very careful about offers like that. Now, just kind of revisit some of the concepts we talked about. Just know the amount of gift aid that's being offered, requirements for scholarships. Is the scholarship renewable? Requirements for institutional grants. How much remains to be paid after you receive gift aid? What is the process for obtaining a federal work-study position? And then kind of what I just said, what amounts and types of student parent loans are recommended. Now, I want to add one more thing that you don't see here. We talked quite a bit about the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and what that means and who needs to complete it. But that may not be the only document that you have to do for a financial aid office. Some schools may have a free institutional application that you'll need to do to be considered for their institutional aid. Okay? So that's another takeaway. If you don't know, you want to ask. So in that scenario, if that school has a free institutional application that's just for their institutional aid, you'll do that form. Then guess what? You still have to do a FAFSA, because the FAFSA form considers you for federal and state aid. Now, there are some schools that may not have a free institutional application, but they may have another document that you have to pay a fee for, like the CSS profile. That's a document that's put out by College Board. So if you visit the College Board website where students sign up for SAT, that's College Board. You can see any schools inside the state or outside the state that require that document. So if your school requires a CSS profile, then of course you'll need to do that to be considered for the institutional aid, and then you must also do the FAFSA form. So make sure you adhere to deadlines, because if they have the CSS profile that you have to do, or institutional application is free that you need to do, they're going to have their deadline. Then they may also have other deadlines that you need to adhere to. So make sure you know about that. Now, these are some things that you might see on a award notification or notice. So estimated cost of attendance, we talked about that a few times today. Disclaimers about the aid offered. Reminders to report any financial aid that you expect to receive. They may give you a list of actions and steps that you need to complete so that your financial aid can be taken care of. So terms and conditions that apply to your financial aid offer. So they may have that on that document. Additional information. Sometimes you might be selected for verification once you do your financial forms. Doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. But if you are selected for verification, the financial aid office has to verify certain pieces that you reported on your documents. So they may say, okay, well, we need for you to provide us this, this, and this. And if they say that, get that to them as soon as you can. It might be something very simple. They may have to verify the number, in college, or, how many are in your household. So you need to get that information to them, because until you get that piece of information, whatever it is, to them, your financial aid is not being processed. Okay? Some schools use a third-party servicer, and you might get correspondence from that third-party servicer, and they may say, we need for you to complete this form or provide this information. Get that to them as soon as you can so that your financial aid can continue to be processed. Sometimes there's special circumstances. As we talk about special circumstances, we're doing our financial aid applications in January, February, but guess what? Your student's not really attending school until what? August. A lot of things can change or happen. And one of the most popular things that can happen is loss of employment. It's real, it's happening every day to people. So that's one of the ones that we see a lot. The other one would be divorce and separation, disability, death, unusual medical expenses. These are things that we see. Now, sometimes people will say, well, I don't want to tell my business. It's not you telling your business, it's you helping your student. So your financial picture might have been one thing when you did the form. On the FAFSA form, there's no place for you to put additional notes. So if there's anything that you need to share, you must talk to the financial aid office of the school that your student will plan to attend. So they may have you complete a special conditions form, special circumstance form, whatever they call it. They may ask you to provide proof of whatever you're telling them. Well, you get that to them. They use a process that we call professional judgment. And they look at your information case by case, and they make a determination how that's going to impact your student's financial aid. So I know some of these things may seem personal, and you may not necessarily want to share, but think about the fact that it's helping your student. And our primary goal of what we're trying to do is to get your student to the next level. We're trying to get them to college. So, you want to do things that you need to help your student finance their college experience. Now, as we talk about tax credits, if you pay for tuition fees out of your pocket, or if you're a payment of an educational loan, those are just some examples. There may be some tax credits or deductions out there that may help. So I will tell you, you need to talk to your tax advisor, whoever that might be, if you have questions about that, or you can go to the irs.gov website. You can find out any changes or updates regarding those particular things as they apply to education. Now, CFNC, we have a lot of resources out there. Don't expect for you to remember everything that we talked about. Okay, in a few minutes, we're going to get into our Q&A, and I will ask that we not record the Q&A just for your privacy, so we'll answer those privately. But as we talk about CFNC resources, we do have a financial aid primer. We want you to understand how financial aid works. So maybe it's been a while since you've been to college and some things have changed. Maybe you've never sent a child to college before, and you kind of want to make sure that you understand some of the lingo. So we do have a glossary there. We actually have a section that's called Paying for College. Okay? And so you can learn about the federal grants, state grants. You can learn about some of the private resources that we have available. We do have some links to some national search engines, so you can find out all that information, learn a little bit more about loans. Financial literacy is something that's near and dear to our heart. Financial wellness is very important. Financing your students' college experience is part of financial wellness. So on our website, also under the Pay tab, we actually have something that's called Financial Literacy. There's a course called Financial Literacy 101. If your student takes that course, if they're a senior, Okay? They take the Financial Literacy 101 course on or before June 30th, and they score 80% or better. We put them in the running for a $500 scholarship. It's a random drawing that's done. So again, they go to the pay tab, go to financial literacy. They're looking for the Financial Literacy 101 course. It's a 90-minute interactive course. They score 80% or better, you automatically put them into a random drawing for $500. The deadline again is June 30th. So they don't have to do it all at one time. They can start, they can stop. But it's a great thing. Whether your student receives the award or not, it's going to be valuable information because they're learning about credit, debt, banking, borrowing, identity theft. Some real concepts that they need to understand before they leave home. Or even if they're going to school locally, this is going to be something that will help them, as they mature to a responsible adult. And then we have a smart borrow calculator. Is it smart for your students to even take a loan out? Okay, based upon what they're going to, be doing, whatever their career choice is, and the money they're going to be making, is it smart for them to borrow? Is it going to be reasonable debt, manageable debt, or is it going to be dangerous debt? Now, just to show of hands, how many people receive this? The Forgivable Education Loan for Service. This is the last thing that I'll talk to you about. The North Carolina Forgivable Education Loan for Service is not a loan that forgives loans that you already have. That's the number one question I always get, okay? This is a loan program in itself. It is for people who are dedicated to working in critical needs areas, such as teacher education. So that would be something like ESL or special education. It could be consumer science, to name just a few. If we're talking about nursing, nursing is broad. It could be your student could be working on their BSN. It could be somebody who wants to be a nurse educator. It could be someone who wants to work on their master's as a nurse. It could be a nurse practitioner. These are just some examples. So it's not the comprehensive list. I encourage you to go online to get the complete list of everything, but I'm just giving you some ideas. Under medicine, there are several professions that qualify at the doctoral level. When we're talking about allied health, we're talking about things like EMT, EMS, OT, PT, pharmacy, let's see what else, sonography qualifies, social work qualifies. But on our website, there's a comprehensive list. So basically, if your student receives the Forgivable Education Loan for Service, if they agree to work in the state of North Carolina for 1 year, for every year they get the money, it's forgiven. Because it's a loan, okay, but it's forgiven because of their service in critical needs areas. So if your student gets the money and they say, hey, I don't think I really want to do it, then it becomes, well, I should say, it stays a loan, remains a loan, then they must repay. And the interest rate is about 8%. So inside this brochure, there's a short link, and it will say cfnc.org/FELS. If you go there, you'll see all the official rules. It's about 19 pages of information. The deadline is April 1. The application is live. So if your student does not have a CFNC account, they need to get one to apply for this. It takes them about 5 minutes to do the application. And like I said, it's a great program. It's not just for your kids, but if you're into any of these areas as an adult, you can apply too. Okay? So it could be for undergrad work, it could be for graduate work, but it has to be a program that qualifies. So with that being said, that's the formal part of my presentation. We're going to stop here. Now I will say, if you are satisfied with the information that you received and you do not have questions and you need to run, I totally get it, I understand. But if you have questions that you want to ask in a group setting, I'll tell you what I know as of today, and we can do that. And then if you have a private or personal question that you do not want to share, I will stay for those questions. If you have to leave, thank you so much for your time, and I wish your student great success.